Let's now move to Afghanistan, which faces a confluence of multiple crises just as President Biden withdraws American forces. Beyond the pandemic, drought, and a dire economy, the country confronts a resurgent Taliban movement that now controls or contests more of the country's territory than at any time since 2001. Recently, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited India and raised concerns over the Taliban's intentions and Afghanistan's future.
This recently emerged video is showing people protesting and raising their voice against the atrocities of Taliban and Pakistan, which has been taking advantage of current chaos and is openly supporting Taliban to gain stronghold against Afghan government. This is Afghanistan's diaspora living in California, which recently took to the streets to protest against Taliban's carnage. Afghanistan is on course to witness the highest number of documented civilian casualties in a single year since the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan records began. Recently, on a two-day visit to India, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken expressed concerns over the motives of Taliban and increasing attacks on civilians in Afghanistan. Blinken referred to atrocities committed by the Taliban in areas the group had taken over and said an Afghanistan that didn't respect the rights of its people would become a pariah state.
Yes, certainly what we're seeing on the ground in the last week is the Taliban making advances on district centers, challenging some provincial capitals. We've also seen these reports of atrocities committed by the Taliban in areas that it's taken over that are deeply troubling, and certainly do not speak well to the Taliban's intentions for the country as a whole.
Afghanistan is battling every day to survive, and the Taliban is beating the drum of victory. It seems to have rolled up its sleeves to reimpose its regime. However, Washington has made it clear that taking Afghanistan by force won't grant Taliban international recognition.
The Taliban says that it seeks international recognition, that it wants international support for Afghanistan. Presumably, it wants its leaders to be able to travel freely in the world, sanctions lifted, etc. Well, the taking over the country by force and abusing the rights of its people is not the path to achieve those objectives. There's only one path, and that's at the negotiating table to resolve the conflict peacefully and to have an Afghanistan emerge that is governed in a genuinely inclusive way and that's representative of all its people.
The overall trend is clearly unfavorable to the Afghan government, which could face an existential crisis if it is not addressed and reversed. The Taliban, beyond having momentum, appear to have definitive psychological edge. They want to return to power, and the support of Afghanistan remains an enormous asset in their favor. Recently, a report prepared by UN Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team also said that the terrorists belonging to Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan support the Taliban insurgents inside Afghanistan against Afghan forces. India thus has clarified that the independence and sovereignty of Afghanistan can only be ensured if it is free from malign influences.
We don't think outcomes should be decided by force on the battlefield. We think the peace negotiations should be a negotiation and should lead to peace. It should see cessation of violence. There should be a political settlement. So that is where we are looking at, and I think there is a broad consensus, deep consensus. Most of the neighbors of Afghanistan agree with that. Now, I grant you, not everybody who agrees does what they say they would do. I noted the exception which you have pointed out to. But I think that is a reality which is not new. That is the reality over the last 20 years.
A negotiated peace in Afghanistan presents a number of challenges. If there is no peace in Afghanistan, there will be a major threat in the region and beyond, as Afghanistan is the first line of defense against terrorism not only for itself but for the entire world.